The most dangerous room in the house. Well, you know, I tell you what, I have another room that's not in the house, but it's adjacent to it. It's my shop. It's pretty much as dangerous because of the saws and the torches and the equipment that's there that can just do horrible things to a person. However, it needs to be said that probably the kitchen, I would still say, is the most dangerous, because the dangers seem to hide in plain sight. And what I mean by that is, when I was making a list about the things that I wanted to discuss as I did a kitchen safety or the most dangerous room in the house kind of video, I started being surprised at all of the things I came up with. It took me back, in fact. I was like, oh wow, I did not realize that it was that bad. And it really is. This is a very dangerous room, and we're going to go into it. There's a lot of things here. There's knives, there's sharp things, there's things that can cut you, things that can burn you, things that can, things that can just make life living hell. Okay, and so let me go over what I came up with. You might be surprised at some of the stuff that I throw out there. The first thing I'm going to put out may be a little bit close to home because of our living situation that we've had for the years of 2020 and 2021. So don't be too taken back by the first part, because it's not very long and the majority of this goes into a lot of other information. First thing I wanted to talk about is as far as kitchen safety, dangers in the kitchen, pathogens, okay? Something that we don't often think about right up front, but we occasionally think about it. That's the reason we use bleach, and we use a bleachy rag and sanitize around the sink and clean things in that way and make sure we keep things very clean, is to maintain a certain level of a sanitized environment. Now, you can't have a sterile environment. That's not achievable in a kitchen, but you can have a sanitary environment. And I wanted to mention a couple of things about this. If you think that that's not really a most dangerous thing in the kitchen kind of hazard, it is. We're talking about something that will put you in the hospital so fast it'll make your head spin. If you've never had real food sickness, you know, like salmonella or giardia or something like that, then you just can't understand how bad it can get. These are diseases that, you know, foodborne diseases that kill people. All right, and so this part of this is really very important, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to put it up front. And I wanted to put this up front because you might say to yourself, well, look, I've already using the bleach rag, I'm sanitizing everything. Here's something you may not have considered. In the world of, let's say, professional cooking, commercial kitchen, they are required to occasionally, in addition to their regular sanitizing duties, to do what's referred to as a shock treatment. The same thing that's done in swimming pools when the level of bacteria get too high. You have to do a shock treatment. And it's the same in the kitchen, at home. You occasionally need to do a shock treatment. That doesn't mean more bleach. What we do in this shock treatment, and what this means, is sometimes the bacteria that you're treating with your bleach, sometimes those mold spores and those bacteria become resistant to the bleach itself, so the bleach isn't killing it. And that's when you need to do a shock treatment using something else that will certainly kill it, and that way when you get back to using your bleach on a regular basis, you have no resistant pathogens there. And that's the idea. So let's start with sanitization. Number one, you're using bleach. Number two, vinegar. People don't think about this. Vinegar is a sanitizer. Don't mix it with water, just use it straight up, okay? You can mop down surfaces with it. Make sure that you follow behind with some clear water, and be careful about what surfaces you put your vinegar on. If you put your vinegar on stone or certain types of counters, you may etch it. You could change the sheen on the stone by doing that. You want to be careful what you put it on and how long it's there. But your vinegar works great as a sanitizer, and that's inexpensive. Now another one, and you can order this from restaurant supplies, you can order it from places that sell brewing supplies, you know, like for beer making and wine making. It's a substance called potassium metabisulfite. This potassium metabisulfite is something I've used myself. I've used it in wine making to make sure that we kill off the yeast before bottling. All right, and that's important because you don't want your bottles building pressure and exploding. So we would use the potassium metabisulfite, and I've learned that, you know, because of, you know, kitchen work, that using this product works great as a sanitizer. Use a little bit more of it, and it's not much. It's about about a quarter of a cup of potassium metabisulfite powder to about a gallon of water will pretty much sanitize anything in your kitchen. All right. Again, don't leave it on the surface. Put it on there, use it, clean the surface with it, and then clean that substance back off. You don't want it sitting there just hanging out on that surface, okay? You want clean surfaces that have been properly treated. Okay, so we've got the different methods of sanitizing covered, but there's something I wanted to mention to you, and this is real important. Dedicated cutting boards, all right? Now what that means is you have different cutting boards for different jobs. You have one board for doing meats, one for doing vegetables, that kind of thing. And a lot of people simply flip the board over. They'll use the smooth side on the back for vegetables and fruits and that kind of stuff. And they'll use the other side that has a blood groove in it for cutting meats. But even still, if you're doing that, you can get cross-contamination. Let me explain what I mean. Hang on. Oh, here we go. So here you see a whole stack of cutting boards. And I pull these out so I can show you what I mean by dedicated cutting boards. And you can do this with wood boards, just have different boards for different purposes. All right. Now in commercial kitchens, a lot of municipalities require commercial kitchens to use dedicated boards, and they want them to use colored boards because they're very specific as to what each board does. You have boards for handling raw meats, and you have a board for handling cooked meats. You have a board for handling dairy and cheese and that kind of stuff. So let me go through that. Yellow board is for poultry. If you got a duck, a turkey, a chicken, quail, pheasants, any kind of a bird goes on the yellow board. That's not cooked, that's raw. Yellow board for raw poultry. Brown board right here, all cooked meats. Doesn't matter if it's seafood, if it's poultry, if it's beef, whatever. If it's a cooked meat, we use brown boards for cutting, okay? And sometimes we use dedicated brown boards depending. So like if I'm going to be slicing a really juicy ribeye, or a rib roast I should say, then I'm not going to be using this same board to cut or to set fish on. All right, which would be kind of unusual to put cooked fish on a board anyway. But the point being made, I'm not going to put another meat on there with that much juice. Blue boards, that's for seafood. See how it kind of works? Blue like water, you know. All right, so all of your fish, if it's seafood, if it's fish, freshwater or saltwater, all hits, when it's raw, hits your blue board, okay? We have a red board. Red board is for red meats. You have lamb, you've got pork, beef, goat meat, whatever. If it's red meat, hits the red board, okay? If it swims in water, blue board. If it clucks and has a beak, it's a yellow board. And if it bleeds red, folks, it's a red board, okay? White board. Well, what's white in the kitchen? How about dough? How about when you're kneading dough or rolling it out or cutting cheese? White board for dairy and for baking, for bakery stuff. Green board. Green board is what we use for vegetables. Vegetables and fruits and things like that. If it grew out of the ground, it goes on the green board. Dedicated boards reduce the chance of cross-contamination. You don't want to put cooked meat on a board that had seafood on it an hour before. The seafood was on it, the board dried, then you put cooked beef on it, you serve your cooked beef, and suddenly everyone in the house is sick. Why? Because the board didn't get washed. It's just that simple, and that's all it takes. So remember, very important, pathogens crawl around all over the place. Don't give them any opportunities, okay? Control that environment. Now, I think outside of dedicated boards, very thorough cleaning. The thing of it is you can't sanitize dirt. So clean the surface, sanitize it, and then rinse off that sanitizing solution. All right, now we move on to sharp things, all right? Kitchen's got a lot of sharp things. Sharp edges, sharp corners, things that can poke you like an ice pick. You can get poked with an ice pick or skewered all the way through. Speaking of skewers, the skewers are pretty sharp. It's no fun to have one go through your fingers when you're trying to push it through some tough meat and suddenly it finally goes through. And it takes a little more meat with it than you wanted it to, if you know what I mean. Be careful, skewers are dangerous. Knives, as we already know. These things will cut you, they'll stab you, they will send you flat to the hospital, okay? And the thing of it is there's no such thing as a perfect technique. There's a lot of different knife techniques, a lot of different ways to cut any one thing. And those ways, every one of them is just a different technique. There's neither right or wrong, it's just different ways of doing something. Some work better, some don't work as well, some are safer, some are less safe. And that's up for you to figure out. Now, that's why folks like me are here. We kind of help show you these different methods and point out what works easier and what's a little harder. Knives are very dangerous. Learning proper techniques really, really makes a difference. You don't want your fingers sticking out with your knife chopping like this, because you can cut into your fingers when you're looking at the food and not your finger. When mincing, it's easy for the thumb to get out from behind the hand because the hand's on top of the back of the knife. So you run risks with the use of knives. Also, there's this thing. I love this. This is called a mandolin, and we're not talking about something you play. We're talking about a kitchen mandolin, which allows you to slice and cut and make all kinds of neat things. I have straight blades and wavy blades and vertical blades that allow you to make fries and stuff like that. So this thing basically slices and cuts, but it does so very well and so quickly, it'll easily take off a whole lot of your skin in a very, very short moment. Some of the worst injuries I've seen in the kitchen, professionally, in professional kitchens, come from this guy. This and burns, okay? Sharp things, knives, your mandolin, there's things that you don't think about. Sharp things. This guy right here, in the bottom of it, it has the most ferocious set of blades to it. I mean, I just got poked by one of them, all right, just pulling it out because they're that sharp on top. And then there's some facing down, and then there's these up here. And it's kind of a scary thing. You get right down to it. A lot going on there. Well, you don't want little hands accidentally reaching down in the jar. That wouldn't be a very good moment in life. All right, and you certainly don't want to pick something out or reach in there. You want to use the right tool because you run a lot of risk otherwise. And you might think, oh, well, the blade's way at the bottom. Not on this one. Look at this thing. It's way up, halfway up in there. Okay, so a lot of danger, even with something that you would think doesn't really pose a lot of danger. Okay, a lot of hazards there. Forks, picks, skewers, we've already mentioned. Edges and corners. I know somebody that frequently has beamed his head on the corners of cabinet doors. Someone that's close to me. And he's hurt himself a lot of times doing that. just raising up, bam, hit the door that was open, and so the sharp corners. There's a lot of things you're doing in the kitchen. There's more cabinet doors in here than there are in any other room. So that then in and of itself just becomes a hazard. It's a small hazard, but it's still a hazard. So anyway, we've also got hot things. We talk about sharp things. That's nasty enough. But there's a lot of people that get burns in the kitchen. I've had plenty of burns in the kitchen. More than I want to talk about, really. I've had some bad burns in the kitchen. I've had third-degree burns in the kitchen. As a boy, I got third-degree burns back on my elbow here. That was in the kitchen. That was from boiling water. All right? But there's also what you bump into. You reach in the oven to grab a pot or pan that's in the back, and suddenly you've got a burn because your arm hit the side of the oven door. Or you're reaching to get to a pot lid, and you didn't see a small vent of steam coming out of another pot that hit you in the arm and burned you badly. That's happened to me a couple of times. You learn how to aim your pots and how to grab a hold of lids after that. I like using my tongs to grab the lids and lift because it pulls me back away from the pots a little bit. It's a little bit safer that way. Also, I don't have to worry about burning my fingers on the lid handle. You could reach across with a pot holder to open that lid, but still, that first burst of steam, and anybody that's done it enough knows what I mean. Also, the water dripping off of the lid. You want to control that and where it goes, because that's hot, boiling hot steam water that will burn you badly. Okay, so burns happen all over the kitchen. Let me see here. We got your oven, your stove. How about toaster oven? Did you ever think about your coffee pot? Burns right there, folks. You could take your coffee and spill it on yourself accidentally. You can get burns from the hot plate on it. You can get burns from the pot itself. Things happen. All right. Your pans, pots, utensils, tap water. What if your tap water's too hot and you reach your hand into it? Bam, boom, you've burned your hand. Maybe it's not a bad burn, but it hurts nonetheless. All right? And then you've also got things that lead to fire. Hot foods, okay? Let's say you've overfilled the turkey fryer. You're lowering the turkey and it overflows. The oil flows down, makes contact with the fire, and the minute that happens, bam, you have an inferno. I hope you put it far enough away from the house. Otherwise, you're going to be calling the fire department. Also, that happens in the house too. One moment you're trying to slide a pan over. It either slides too easy or gets bumped, and then some of that oil spills over, hits the burner. The next thing you know, you have an inferno on your stove. You have to know how to handle that. And by the way, so you'll know, you take a lid from a pot and you put it right on top of it. Puts it out just like that. Don't make it any harder than that. Even if it's a big pot, and it doesn't have to be the right lid, just as long as it completely covers it. It'll snuff that flame right out. Any other flames would just be what's on the stove and coming up around the sides. And that's all containable. So be careful, never throw water on it. Okay, burning oil and food we've covered. There's a lot of different kinds of ways to get burned, so think about that. Now, you might be thinking, why is he saying all of this? It is to help make you aware, and when you're aware, you'll know about and know how to avoid, okay? Because when it comes to safety, if you don't put focus and concentration up front, then safety first doesn't work, okay? So really, it's kind of safety third, focus first, concentration, safety comes with that. All right, so we've covered that. Now, slippery surfaces, slippery floors. Slippery surface means you can have something that has a hot liquid on it that slides off and scalds or burns somebody badly. So you want to avoid that. Slippery floors means you get falls. If you've been frying and some of that grease has spattered out and is on the floor in front of the stove is going to be slippery. Folks, if you've been baking and some of the flour got dusted off onto the floor is going to be slippery from the flour. All right, if it gets wet at the sink, it's going to be slippery. If you've spilled something, which is more than likely in a kitchen, it's slippery. So you got a serious slip condition here, slip and fall problem. Kitchens are dangerous in that way. All right, now I mentioned the water, grease. You can spill food. What if you drop ice on the floor? You step on the ice cube or it leaves a puddle, boom. Next thing you know, you're sitting on your rear end wondering what caused you to fall. Also sugar, think about that. Granular items on the floor. Any kind of powder or granulated item, that's going to cause you some trouble. See what I mean by a long list? By it taking me back? There's a lot of stuff here. Machinery, we've already talked about one of them. That's a pretty dangerous machine. All right? There's others. This guy. This one is known for hurting people. Now, when these are small, they're not as dangerous, but still they're dangerous. You can break a finger with them. You can break smaller bones in an arm, and a kid's arm is just food for this thing, okay? So you never want to get anything that's a body part down in here when the sucker is running, because it can hurt you badly. That dough hook doesn't care whether it's going past dough or your arm, okay? It's still going to go past it. So I want to mention that. You have dangerous machines. Also, if you think about this, if you've got long hair gets caught in machinery. It happens. It'll pull you right in. The next thing you know, you're being scalped or having part of your hair ripped out very painfully. You don't need that, okay? Or it could send you flat to the hospital if you're bleeding enough. Okay, so depending on how much hair it gets and how far it pulls it, be careful. Loose clothing, jewelry, okay? Folks, you've seen chefs, they wear a chef's jacket. They do that on purpose. It's double-breasted, helps protect against burns. It's designed to be ripped off quickly so that you can get it off if something hot does spill onto it. The long sleeves help to prevent burns against oven surfaces or reaching across a pot that might have a vent of steam. Things that you don't see. So, important, there is certain apparel that's worn by professionals for a reason. And that's because those dangers do exist. A slicer, garbage disposal. Don't put your fingers down in the garbage disposal. Somebody might accidentally bump the switch. All right? Loose cords. Could grab machinery, pull it off of counters. You can spill things or somebody below could get hurt if they're small. All right, microwave ovens. Go ahead and put some metal in a microwave oven and you'll see just how not dangerous it is. Okay, it can get bad. I've actually seen some nasty things come out of microwaves. Believe it or not, I've seen a flaming donut because the person that put the donut in the microwave was limited and they didn't have the ability to understand the difference between a minute and 10 minutes. And I'll say this, when you get a donut hot enough, it'll certainly spark fire. Yes, it will. And believe it or not, I've also seen flaming shorts. That's right, I was in an environment where I went into an area that had smoke in the air, and so I immediately switched into you know, that frame of mind where you go into safety mode. I'll find it and fix it. So I started looking for the fire. I saw the flames and smoke coming out of the top vent of a microwave vent hood, and I jerked the door open, and inside I see flaming shorts. That's right, as in underwear. And so anyway, I grabbed some tongs, pulled that out, threw it onto the sink, and was putting out the shorts as the owner came running around the corner yelling, "Those are mine." I said, "No, these are evidence." And so be careful what you put in a microwave. It does matter, and it does matter for how long. Watch what you're doing in the kitchen. It can go bad while you walk off and do other things. Exploding food, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sometimes food explodes. Kaboom. All right, the first time I saw exploding food, I was a young boy. Mother apparently didn't poke the potatoes well enough, and one of them went off in the oven, taking out the window on the front and making quite a smoky mess. All right, so exploding potato. Pressure cookers can go kaboom, and when they do, they will spray you with liquid that will send you to the hospital with third-degree burns. All right, alcohol vapor. I actually did this on one of my videos once. I was poured in the alcohol and was engaging the audience the way I'm doing you now, instead of lighting the alcohol. And as it bubbled and burned in that pan, a vapor cloud of alcohol built. And when I lit it, that cloud went up. And I had a big, beautiful blue and yellow flash go off right in front of the camera. If I remember right, that was Bananas Foster. If you want to see that happen, look at my Bananas Foster video. All right, so it happens. All right, these dangerous things do happen. You just don't think they'll happen, but sometimes they do. All right, electric appliances. Small electrics like this, if they get wet, you can get electrocuted. So you have electrical dangers. You've got gas appliance dangers. You've got heat, sharp, slippery. It's a dangerous room, folks. So while you're in the most dangerous room in the house, preparing delicious, wonderful things, that is my laundry. So when you're in the kitchen preparing those delicious, wonderful things, please keep in the back of your mind, you're in a dangerous room. To keep yourself focused on what you're doing, and make sure if there's a mess or something wrong, or it's anything is out of order, take care of that first and then move back into cooking, okay? That way you don't get hurt, nobody else gets hurt. Let's avoid those problems and those dangers. And thank you so much for watching this. Do me a favor, look right down below this in my description box. That is where you're gonna find a link to S.A.Trotter Arts. That's where I have my recipes. That's where I have my merch for Texas Cooking Today and a lot of other stuff. So take a look at that. It's really cool. And I have my social media, so if you would sign on to my Twitter and also to my Facebook. I've got multiple pages there, so take a look. Thank you very much for watching this, for joining with me in this. Please be safe. And folks, you have a good day.